So how many of you raise your virtual hand? How many of you raise your virtual hand have noticed that the last 2 years have been a bit tumultuous? All right, and how many of you would like to do something about that, starting with yourself? All right, that's what we're here to do today. So today, what we're going to do is we are going to be in service of humanity. Many of you have seen these. We've been posting nothing but this today, and you've seen this be part of something huge for humanity. You've probably wondered, what is that? And I want to be clear. Today is about, I'm going to teach you something that you can use for yourself, but the purpose that I'm doing this is so that we can do it together collectively as a group, because there is power in numbers. So one of the things I want to do is set the stage, right? I want you to understand why we are doing this and why we are doing it this way. So the first thing I want you to get, and I borrowed this from Star Wars, is that your focus determines your reality. Now, I know that this sounds, I got something on my screen here. I know that this sounds a bit trite, but I really I will show you that your focus actually determines your reality. And therefore, the solution lies within our collective focus. If we can focus on what is right and on what we want, and if a number of us can do that collectively and on the same things, we can actually create a reality that looks very different than the one we're in now. So the one we're in right now, what's the problem right now? Well, the problem is that everybody right now is wrapped up in the same illusion, in the same focus, but what we're focused on is fear. And the acronym I like to use for fear is false evidence appearing real, right? Because you are reacting to this reality as if it were real, okay? And when you act like it's real, then your whole world shows up in support of this evidence. And this is being done on purpose because you're much easier to corral and you're much easier to convince and control when you're all focused on something that makes you fearful. Fear is a very powerful state. Now, again, this is just the way the world is right now. And, if I had to manage 7 billion people, I don't know how I would do it either. And it's not a new technique. And it gets people to just pay attention and do what I say, because in a crisis, that's what we need. But the problem with fear is that you lose your ability to think. And this is exacerbated by the sort of way we're built, the way our bodies are built. Our bodies, are electrochemical miracles, quite frankly. But you may not realize that your brain is electric, your heart beats electric pulses. Around those electric fields are magnetic fields, because that's Faraday's law, that's just basic science. So you're kind of, in a nutshell, an electromagnetic machine. And that's no different than your cell phone. And the thing about electromagnetic machines is they are predictable with respect to machinery. And one of the things that we know, and one of the reasons why people end up in this tunnel vision of fear, which is very prevalent on the planet today, is because they're entrained. We're all entrained and we're focused together on one thing, and we're focused acutely on one thing. But unfortunately, that thing is creating a lot of fear. And what that does is it generates for people almost a trance-like state. And in that state, then you lose the ability to think critically. You lose the ability to ask questions. And most importantly, you lose the ability to direct your focus towards what you want. And this is the biggest problem. I often teach classes, and I really want you to understand that the state of the world today is simply because we're all focused on this false evidence appearing real. So what are we going to do today? Well, first and foremost, before we get started, I want to thank you for showing up. I want to thank you for sharing. I want to tell you the big three things, the big three buckets. Gina, what are we going to do today? Well, I'm going to teach you the basis for how your focus determines reality, because I need you to understand this on a fundamental level. Then I'm going to teach you how do you change that focus so that you can put a goal into your own timeline. And this can be for any goal, whatever goal you've got for 2022. And then the third thing, and the most important thing, and the reason why we're here, is we are going to then collectively take that skill and put a collective vision for humanity into the future timeline. So we're going to do that together, and we're going to use this technology as a group to focus on what we want together instead of what's been happening to us unconsciously. So that's the big 3 takeaway. Before we get going, let me just tell you a snip about who I am, because while I know many of you, and I see many common names that have people that I know and people I want to say hi to and wish a happy new year to, there are many of you that don't know me at all. So here's what you need to know about me. First and foremost, my specialty is change. So I have studied for over 2 decades the mechanics of change. I'm an expert in change. And the way that I've applied this is that in anything you want to do in your life that's different from where you are now, you're going to need to change. So I've spent a lot of my life helping humans reach their potential or reveal their greatness in whatever that is. And because of my expertise in change, we've created mechanistic models of the world. That's not the way the world is, but it's for our purposes, helps us to help people get where they're going faster and with less effort using our system that we call the ACME system, which is just an acronym. I know you're all thinking about the Roadrunner right now, but it's just an acronym for Accelerated Change Mechanisms of Excellence. I've written a couple books on the subject, and this is what I've dedicated my life to doing. And revealing greatness is why I get out of bed every day and do all of this. So that's a little bit about me. Now, give me one of your favorite emojis if you want to get the most out of this program. So go ahead, click on any reaction, give me an emoji, and perfect. So here's how you get the most out of this program. Number 1, don't believe a word I say. This is really, really important. Okay, don't believe a word I say, because this isn't the truth. And anybody who tells you that they have the truth should be aware that it was true that the world was flat. It was true. It was true, 100% true that the planets used to all revolve around the earth. This was true. And if actually you went against this truth, things didn't turn out very well for you. I don't have the truth, but I do know some things you might not know. So don't believe everything I say, but try it on. I want you to have an open mind for the next 30 minutes or so that we can see if we can do something magical here. Number 2, and this is really important, the concept of the mastermind says that when 100 or more people are focused on the same thing or focused on the same goal, and they come together in pursuit of this goal, a third mind is created. And that mind has the ability to access more resources, more problem solving, more creativity than the individual minds. So we're going to create a mastermind here. I'm going to give it everything I've got. You give it everything you've got. And somehow we're going to create this mastermind. So I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. If you give it a 10 out of 10, then we're going to create an 11. So what I'm going to do now, which is insane, is I'm going to try to unmute everybody if I can do that. And we're going to do the first test. Now, this is going to be psychotic, but it's awesome because you will feel the energy from around the world. The answer to the question is 10. Okay, the answer to the question is 10. And the answer to the question is 10, and I want you to give it to me at a level 10. And I've just been handed a note that your video was disabled. So I've just enabled your videos. So please go ahead and enable your videos. I don't know what happened there, but we have tech. Oh, that's amazing. Much better. Much better. Thank you. So now that your video is working, in a minute, I'm going to do the unthinkable. I'm going to ask everybody to unmute. And then I'm going to mute you all almost immediately. But the answer to this question is 10. And I want you to shout it at a level 10. Okay, so I want to hear this from around the world at a level 10. Are you guys ready? Okay, here we go. I'm going to give it a level 10. What level are you guys going to give it? Go, unmute, give me it. 10. 10. Okay, now mute everybody back up. Mute everybody back up. All right, mute yourself. Great. Carrie, mute them up if you haven't figured out how to do it. All right, now let's get going. Okay, we will not be beaten by this technology. All right, now let's talk about the world today. So I'm going to share with you a small presentation here. Whatever you fight, you strengthen. Whatever you resist persists. This is the problem with what's happening on the planet here today, is that people are pushing against what they don't want, which what you need to understand is when you push against what you don't want, you strengthen the reality of the very thing you don't want. So by giving it your energy, by giving it your attention, by giving it your reinforcement, by giving it all of that, you prevent anything else from happening because you strengthen that reality. Okay, this is energetic. So even if you just are criticizing it and saying this is not how I want it to be, that makes that reality stronger. And so what we've got is we've got an entire planet focused on what they don't want and making that stronger by pushing against it. The answer is to let it go. And what I need you to get, and I was watching this movie over the holidays, and so what I want you to get is that love actually is all around. And while you are strengthening the reality that you don't want, you're missing what's around you. And so I watched Love Actually over the holidays, and I want to read you and the reason I watched this movie is because of the opening scene when they show all those people at Heathrow Airport, and when Hugh Grant does the voiceover and he says, whenever I get gloomy with the state of the world, I think about the arrivals gate at Heathrow Airport. The general opinion starting to make out that we live in a world of hatred and greed, and I'll add on here fear and things to be afraid of. But I don't see that. It seems to me that love is everywhere. Often it's not particularly dignified or noteworthy, but it's always there. And you just spent the holidays in whatever way you could with fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, husbands and wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, old friends, etc. And so Hugh Grant goes on to say, you know, back at 9/11, as far as I know, none of the phone calls from people on board were messages of hate or revenge. They were all messages of love. And then the reason why this movie is so popular, because if you look for it, I've got a sneaky feeling, you'll find that love is actually all around. Now, that's where we're starting from. This is where we're going from. We are not pushing against the current paradigm. We are creating a new paradigm. So in order to do that, we're going to need to unlock the power of your mind. Now, when people like me say shit like that, people like you go, what the heck does that mean? So what I like to do before we even get going, because I know there's a lot of people on here, you've never met me, we have no rapport, you might think I'm a little bit crazy. I want to give you an experience of your mind creating a reality that does not exist. I want you to get an experience of that at the visceral level so that we can then rapid fire through this program so that we can put this goal into the timeline for humanity. So what I want to do now is something called the book in the balloon. So everybody stand up. Now, what's going to happen here is you're going to do what I say. If you do what I say wholeheartedly, in fact, the instructions I often give to my audiences around the world are, you need to do this like a 5-year-old would do this. If you do this with the vim and vigor and imaginative capacity of a 5-year-old, you will have the experience of your mind creating reality. It is so powerful, it'll blow you away. It's called the book in the balloon. So stand up and do exactly what I'm doing right here, right now. Now, obviously, if you're driving, don't stand up and save it for later. Okay, put your hands straight out in front of you. Turn one hand palm up. Now, close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that. Good, especially not if you're driving, but if you're not driving, close your eyes. Turn one hand palm up. And with the imaginative capacity of a 5-year-old, imagine I drop those books that are behind me on that hand that's palm up. So we'll call it 5 encyclopedias on the hand that's palm up. And at the same time, I tie those helium balloons, those multicolored helium balloons on the hand that's palm down. On the hand that's palm down, we tie 5 giant helium balloons, and on the hand that's palm up, we drop those books. Now, I know some of you have started going to the gym already because it is New Year's Day, but honestly, a 5-year-old, 10 books, your shoulders aren't that strong, Dan Buckle. Okay, so 10 books on your hand, yeah, and 10 balloons on that arm. Now, have a look around at your fellows here. You'll see everybody who played full out. Now, this is a reality that didn't exist, and you can go ahead and sit down. Everybody give yourselves an applause thing. There's my applause thing. Everybody give yourself an applause thing. Great. All right, now, that was a reality that didn't exist. You got it? It didn't exist. It was 30 seconds of suggestion. Now you'll say to me, well, I did what you said. Well, what do you think you're doing right now in the world? You're just doing what people say. You're everything's a story. There's nothing wrong with that, but you need to understand that it's made up. So 30 seconds of suggestion, and I got you to create a reality that doesn't exist. What do you think 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 2 years, 18 months of telling yourself the same thing day in, day out does to your reality? It strengthens it. So that's okay. That's not bad news. It's good news. The good news is tell yourself a different story. So we are going to do things here today that will seem simple, and yet they will create a profound ripple effect in the world. Because the reason I wanted to do this today at the start of the new year, and yes, the twos were very significant. 2022 is a significant year. 22 is a significant number. If you've ever studied Pythagoras or anything like that, these are very, very significant numbers. And we're doing this on purpose because it doesn't take many. It doesn't take many people. It takes concentration. It doesn't take the whole world to agree. It takes a few people concentrated on the same thing. Well, let's talk about that. So I can't do it today. We don't have the time. I'm just going to teach you what you need to know to be able to put this thing into the timeline. But I want to teach you what we call our ACME number 2. So we have 7 mechanisms in our model. This is number 2. It's called the cycle of results, and it will help you understand how things go from being ideas to being reality. And so it goes like this. You know, we were taught when we were, young at some point that results come from actions, right? Actions produce results. That's what we're taught. And that's true, but it's not exactly true. Actions precede results, but it's not where results come from. Results actually start in the mind. Now, at greatnessu and in all my work, I approach things mechanistically. It doesn't mean, it's my engineering background. It doesn't mean that humans are machines, because I get in these philosophical debates with people, but because actually we're so much more than that. But when we view it mechanistically, we actually can see the machinery, and we can make changes in the machinery. So one of the best mechanistic models I've seen for explaining how your thinking becomes reality, or as Mike Dooley says, how thoughts become things, is this model that came from the 1920s, a guy by the name of Thurman Fleet. And Fleet said, thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to actions, actions lead to results. So that's the cycle of results. Now, what you'll notice in the cycle of results is that the first 2 stages take place inside your meat suit. Right? They take place, this is your meat suit, right? You're way more than your meat suit. That's why I call it a meat suit, right? Think about it. Think about who you are. Now think about all that you are. Now, could you conceive that you're more than that? And could you conceive that you're more than that? So just think about how much you are. Now, thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to actions, actions lead to results. Well, don't just accept this. In fact, I told you not to accept things carte blanche, but I am going to pull my flip chart over here. And I'm going to just put some things up here, and let's just for 5 minutes, let's just see if this makes sense. So part of the way that I made sense of this back when I was creating all these models was I kind of thought, well, does that make sense in the model, in the world that we live in the rationalistic empirical model? Does that make sense? And so I turned to one of my favorite guys that I like to study a lot, which is Einstein. And Einstein gave us the theory of relativity. So just for fun and to keep you moving here, type into the chat what the E stands for. If you know what the E stands for, type into the chat. If you know what the E stands for, type into the chat. Yeah, that's right. Energy, good. Now, if you know what the M stands for, type it into the chat. If you know what the M stands for. Now, I notice a lot of you are going to start typing in the word mass, but I use the word matter because the word mass has the word ass in it, and I speak to a lot of corporate groups. Okay, now C, speed of light, bonus points if anybody can put the actual speed of light into the chat, bonus points, but it's a ginormous number. I have an engineering degree from one of the best schools in the world, and I don't know what the number is, but I know somebody does. So put it into the chat, bonus points if you know it, but it's just a ginormous number. So Einstein gave us this theory of relativity, but it's not particularly complex in its expression. It is in its proof. But what he did was something no one had ever done before. Einstein did something, and if you can guess what he did, go ahead and type it into the chat. Einstein did something that no one has ever done before. Can you guess what Einstein did? Einstein did something no one had ever done before. Come on, Safi, you've seen this 1,000 times. What did Einstein do that no one had ever done before? He made it equal. He made it equal. Now, what does that mean? Well, here's what Einstein said. He said, oh shit, we were wrong. Well, he didn't say the shit part, that was me. But he said, we were wrong. What we used to think of as matter and energy as being different, as being separate, we're wrong. They're actually the same thing. Matter is energy whose vibration has been lowered to be perceivable by the 5 senses. Therefore, everything is energy. Now, here's why that's significant, because it means there's only one set of laws, not 2 or 5 or 10, just one set of laws, and it comprises the whole world. So matter, this marker, is energy whose vibration has been lowered. So vibration just means to shake. And what he's referring to, okay, is the atoms or the particles, the stuff that the world is made of, right? The stuff the world is made of. And he's saying matter is energy whose stuff shakes slower to be perceivable by the 5 senses. Therefore, everything is energy. So all he's saying is this is just energy in a different form. It's like the difference between steam, water, and ice. They're all H2O. They're just in different forms. So let's try it on then with our model to see if it makes sense from an Einstein, let's walk through this and see if it makes sense from Einstein's perspective. So, a result in the world, let's say 2022 is the year you want to get a brand new car. Type into the chat, if you could get any car in the world this year, what would it be? It can be, just dream big. What kind of car would you go for? Oh, Lambo, nice. That's my dad's favorite car. So let's go Lamborghini. So a Lamborghini is a result, right? And a result, this can be perceivable by the 5 senses. You can see a Lambo, you can hear the engine, you can feel it, you can smell it, and new car smell. And if you wanted to, you could take a bite out of that baby and taste it. I don't recommend it, all right, but you could. So a Lamborghini is perceivable by the 5 senses. So matter is energy whose vibration has been lowered to be perceivable by the 5 senses. So in the Einstein equation, the Lamborghini is more of an M. It's like the M part. It's matter. It's perceivable by the 5 senses. Let's go all the way back to the beginning of this equation. Thoughts. So you have about 75,000 thoughts a day. They pass through your mind like a stock ticker. You can't see them, you can't hear them, you can't feel them, you can't smell them or taste them. So none of our senses can sense them, yet we know they're there. If I hook you up to an EEG, I'm going to see a bunch of movement. So in Einstein's equation, this is more of an E, right? So energy, it's, thoughts kind of equate more with energy than they do with matter in the Einstein theory of relativity. Now, let's call it, you're a deep thinker, I'm sure. So 75,000 thoughts a day for you. And every once in a while, based on what you believe or don't believe, or where your attention is focused, pay attention, because this is happening to you in the world right now. You emote. So they pass through your mind, you emote. Now, you can't see your emotions or hear them. You can't smell them or taste them, but you can feel them in the trunk of your body. So there's 1 out of 5 senses. Interesting. It's almost like it's a continuum. Now, everybody on the call, snap your fingers. Everybody, snap your fingers. Okay. You can see it, you can hear it, you can feel it, but try smelling the snap. The snap doesn't have a smell and it doesn't have a taste. So your actions, 3 out of 5. So what we've got here is a continuum. This is a continuum. And so how thoughts become things is that they start in your mind and then it goes through what you believe and don't believe. It gets pushed out of your body, embodied into the world where you take action and you have your results. So yes, absolutely, actions precede results, but that's not where they start. They start inside your mind. Now, this is great news. And I like to simplify things. So we take this whole thing and we go, your state, the state of your meat suit, the state of you, the state of your mind, the state of everything dictates your choices for your actions. It dictates your choices, it constrains your choices, and that dictates your result. Now, let's talk about the most important one then. I want to talk about why your focus creates your reality. So let's keep going here. I'm not going to get into it, but I'm going to give you a top line of our third mechanism called the performance triad. So let's take that state. Let's go inside your mind. Let's change controlling 75,000 thoughts a day to simply controlling your focus. Let's change feelings to emotions, and let's talk about your physiology. So in peak performance, when I'm speaking around the world, I say you've got to focus on what you want. You've got to choose positive emotions. You've got to have a physiology of power. That's your state. Then you got to take a massive action, tons and tons and tons of action. Absolutely. It's not one of these things where you just do those things and hope it drops from the ceiling. You absolutely have to take action. But I want you to understand the power of focus. So outside of you, there are millions of bits of information to choose from for your focus. And this is where it becomes critical, because right now, it's very concentrated what you can focus on. But back in 1954, when they were creating the computer, they were modeling the human brain. This is Carl Pribram, Miller, Galantner, etc. These are scientists. They did a study and they quantified that there were about 2 million bits of information available for the brain to focus on. And then that would get taken into the mind and it would be filtered. And one of the mechanisms for filtering is called your reticular activating system. Now, everybody feel the back of your head, right where that little knob, right where you would plug into the matrix, okay? That is where the reticular activating system is in your skull. And its job is to look for what you're looking for. It's your focusometer. It's whatever your thermostat is set for, it's looking for that. It gathers all that information, throws out everything that doesn't apply, and that is what your brain is left with. And your brain can process about 126 bits a second out of millions. And then that is real. And then your actions are constrained by that focus. And that is how your focus creates reality. Now, you need to get this here. 126 out of 2 million is 0.006%. If your calculator only had 4 digits, it would be 0. It's nothing, and you're calling it reality. Now I have to make something crystal clear. Once it's filtered and in your noggin, it's game over. It's 100% real. But it is not capital R reality. It is not all that there is. And right now you are being pushed into focusing on something, and that very cycle is perpetuating because you're focusing on it and then you're pushing against it and then you're focusing on it and then you're pushing against it. And your reticular activating system does not care if it's positive or negative, good for you, bad for you. It doesn't care. It's looking for what you are looking for. It is looking for it. It's seeking for it, and it works every time. Now, I want to show you a fun video. I show it to a lot of my audiences. Let's optimize this for, because it works every time. And this is super fun. And if you haven't seen it in advance, you're welcome. And if you've seen it before, you know what you're looking for.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Did you see the moonwalking bear? If you didn't, let's rewind it.
Go!
I'll look for the bear. There's the bear. And he's moonwalking. Lucy, quite delighted by the bear. Excellent. Now, how many of you have seen it before? How many of you have seen it before? Yes, of course, right? Now, if you've seen it before, type into the chat, how many passes did the team in black make? I don't know. I was looking for the bear. See, here's the thing. You're only looking for what you're looking for. It doesn't matter if you're counting the passes of the team in white. Doesn't matter if you know the bear is there. Doesn't matter if you knew the team in black was making passes. There are a million things going on in that video to illustrate that no matter what, you are constrained for what you are looking for, period, end of conversation. So you must focus on what you want. Now, people have debated with me over the years, you know, oh, I read that the mind can process more. I read that, and they get into this debate with me. Okay, let me make something crystal clear. Here's what you need to get. Ready? Millions, probably billions or trillions of bits of information now in 2022 available for your brain. Okay, your brain on some level filters it out and can take hundreds. And then that becomes the basis for your behavior. So what we're talking about here is a massive amount of filtering. Millions, billions, trillions, hundreds. Millions, billions, trillions, hundreds. Let me just sum it up for you super easy. You're basically filtering out all of reality except for what you're looking for. And if that's not working for you, that is the problem. Okay? So if you want to see something else, you have to change the filter. That's it. Now, shit, I obviously want to focus on what I want. Well, most people do, right? Now, here's the thing. If you're focused on what you want, then why isn't everybody getting what they want? Well, because we're a bit sneaky about it. And I want to teach you how to catch the sneak. We're very sneaky. We think, and it's perfect because I tell this story a lot and I always say, imagine it's New Year's Day, but it actually is like New Year's Day. And so I'm going to tell this story because it's true for me and it's probably true for you guys too, because it was a pandemic year and probably ate a little bit too much. So it's January 2nd. Everybody's making New Year's resolutions. Okay. Very common New Year's resolution, lose some weight. Very common. Definitely one of my favorites. So here I am wearing my pants that are, my New Year's pants, we'll just call them that. And so I come out and people say, what's your New Year's resolution? And I say, I want to be fit, right? Because no one in their right mind would come out the door and go, I don't want to be so fat anymore. Like, that's just terrible. Nobody says that. Okay. So I say I want to be fit, but here's the problem. If I'm focused on what I don't want as the basis for my goal, I draw that into my reality. So what I don't want is to be fat anymore. That's what's happening to me on New Year's Day. What I do want is to be fit. But if my focus is on away from fat versus towards fit, I'm going to end up in this cycle that you'll see, this vicious cycle. So let's say this is what I don't want over here. This is what I don't want. I don't want to be fat anymore. I don't want to have these extra pounds. I don't want it. Not enough. Okay. And what I want is fit over here. So, right, it's January 2nd. It's right in my face. And I don't want it. So my motivation is super high because I'm really close to what I'm focused on. And so I put all these things in place. In fact, I could probably show you a few of them. They're spreadsheets and various things. And so then, you start, okay, I'm going to work out 2 times a day and I'm not going to eat any sugar and I'm going to drink a gallon of water, and you have this whole thing and you start doing it and you do it with gusto, right? And you get to about the 3rd week of January, by the way, and then somebody has a birthday or something breaks down. So right about that time, somebody has the birthday and they invite you and they have your favorite cake and you say something like this. Well, I got away from it a bit. So I've got some leeway. I've been really good. So I'm just going to have a little bit. And then you have a little bit and then you drink the champagne and you can't get up in the morning. You don't go to the gym and you blew it. And now it's the weekend and you go to a party, you go to a wedding, and all of a sudden you're here again. So you do it double your efforts, and you double your efforts and you get away from it. And then something else happens and then you get, because the whole time your focus is here. And as you move away from what you're focused on, your motivation drops. Now, here I am on January 2nd and my goal is like way out here in the future. Okay. So maybe, what I said today was I'm going to replace wine with water. I'm not going to turn wine into water, but I'm going to replace it. Okay. And that's it. That's my goal. Maybe walk. I'm going to walk 10,000 steps today and see how that goes. And so it's slower. And what happens is your motivation's low because the goal's way out here. But each step you take, you get closer and you get a little bit more zing in your motivation, and you don't end up with this yo-yo effect because you're focused on moving towards what you want. Now, those two things are very different, and you can't trust your words, because if you use the word fit, but your focus is away from what you don't want, you're always going to be bringing back into reality what you do not want. So what's a girl to do? Well, luckily, there's a number of things built into this system here. One is, this is, by the way, when my screen does this, is my screen like insane right now? So when my screen does this, I use this as a teaching instrument, that this is your brain when it tries to take in more than 126 bits. Okay. So your brain can only take in 126 bits. And luckily for me, I've learned to work with the technology. That's what happens when you do more than 126 bits. So one of my teachers who we lost last year, amazing man, said this, and this is the clincher. He said, negative emotions are a sign from your unconscious part of your mind to focus on what you want. What does that mean? So if what you're noticing when you look out into the world today has you go into a negative emotional state, all that means is your focus is on what you do not want. That's all it means. That is great news. So I came up with a little technique based on some real life experience, which is whenever I'm in a bitchy mood, somebody in my life who loves me, I'm sure, says to me, just snap out of it. And so I used to take offense to this. And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to work with it. I'm going to work with snap out of it. So what I like you to do when you feel a negative emotion is just notice, stop what you're doing. Notice you're in a negative emotional state. Have it, remember that that just means you're focused on what you don't want. Alter your focus and then proceed. Hello, that's it. Just snap out of it every time. Now, the number one emotion on the planet that's taking us out of our game right now is anxiety. The number one emotion. And in a minute, I'm going to start talking about the timeline, and we're going to get into the goal getting part of this workshop. And we're coming to the climax here, and I want to do it, but I really want to motivate you to do this. So one of the things I'm going to motivate you with is when we use the concept of the timeline, one of the most powerful techniques I know has to do with managing anxiety or worry. So I'm going to teach you how to do that so that every time you get knocked off the horse, because the horse is coming at you at 1,000 miles an hour via every media channel, everything you see, everything people talk about, like, you know, and instead of having to make it all their problem, right? Like, I don't want to be around negative people. Okay, forget about those people. They're always going to be there. 7 billion of us sharing the planet. Instead, let's just work on you. Okay. If you can manage you, everything else will take care of itself and the world will be a much nicer place. Now, before we can do any of this, I have to share with you my most popular slide. Okay. Here's what you need to get. Nobody can make you do anything against your will. And raise your hands honestly if you've ever tried to change someone that didn't want to change. Just be honest. How'd that go? So when someone doesn't want to change, there's literally nothing you can do to change them. But when someone wants to change, there's nothing you can do to stop them. And that's the honest to God truth. So in order for any of this to work, in order for anything to change in your life, you've got to want it. And then you've got to be willing to give it what it takes. And the reason I'm bringing those two things up, and they are the only two things required for any change, period, is the desire, the real desire for the change, and the willingness to give it what it takes. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because now we're going to do some techniques you may have never heard about. And maybe they're going to be a bit strange to you. And that's okay, because there's no wrong way to do this. And they're just mechanistic techniques that I teach, that I'm certified in. They come from a body of knowledge called timeline therapy, or you may have heard it called creating your future tools. They're just techniques. They're like any other technique on the planet. And just FYI, while we're on the subject of techniques, all techniques on earth work, but they require two things: desire and willingness. You have to want the thing you want to change, and you have to be willing to give it what it takes, or to follow the technique, or whatever it is that you're doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn about this concept, and we're going to apply it to our goals, and putting our goals directly into our timelines. So what is it? What is timeline therapy? Well, timeline therapy utilizes a shift in temporal perspective, which is a fancy word for time. So the shift in perspective is how you look at your life through time. You know, so you have a past, you have a present, you have a future, and it's organized. And in timeline therapy, what we've come to learn is that that organization uses your actual body, your meat suit, as a reference point. So your time is kind of organized with respect to your body, right? So for example, you're going to have a timeline. And here, let me show you a picture of it. And your timeline is just, you are the reference point of your timeline. So I have an idea that your time could go from left to right, or up to down, or front to back, or in some relation to your body. And there's no right answer. and just before we get into it, I want to make sure we're clear. I don't have the timeline seeing ability. Okay, so I'm not looking at you seeing a bunch of timelines like an aura. That's not what we're talking about here. It's something you make up in your mind. But what I can tell you is that it is real. And once you discover how you organize time, if you treat it like it's real in the visualizations that I'm going to do with you, it becomes 100% real. Because once it comes into your mind, it's real for you. It is real. And studies have shown, I mean, I got Jane on the call. She knows every Olympic athlete for the last 25 years. They can all visualize. They do it so well. You know, if you watch a skier before the race, they're going like this, right? They're visualizing the track, or a luger, or somebody, they're visualizing the track. They're a runner, they're visualizing the race. They're running through it in their mind. And this is old news, that the extent that you visualize realistically, your body and mind don't know the difference. So we're going to utilize those concepts in this exercise. But before we do any of that, we're just going to play around with it. So here's a little exercise for you. I want you to think of something that happened to you last week or the week before that. It was the holidays, so you probably got tons of memories. And without thinking about it, without judging it, I want you to point to the direction that your memory just came from. So what happened to you on Christmas? What did you get for Christmas? Where did your memory come from? Behind you, beside you, above you, around you? There's no right answer. Now notice you're going to do something next week. I have an exciting week next week. Where does that live for you? Is it in front of you, above you, beside you? Just notice how your time is organized in a linear fashion. Okay, so your timeline might go up to down, front to back, around you. I've had clients with spiral timelines that could be colored, not colored, lit, not lit, doesn't matter. So go ahead, close your eyes and imagine your timeline. Just go ahead and close your eyes and imagine your timeline. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. However you do it, you do it. Okay, wait, pause. Come back. I know some of you are going, what the hell am I doing here? Okay, so this is what I did with somebody last week, and it was really, because you get in your head and you're like, there's no line. Yes, there's no line. There's no line. I swear to God, I don't see a line. There's no line. We're imagining, like we did with the book and the balloon. Okay, so let's flex your imagination muscles. Everybody on the call, close your eyes and imagine a purple elephant. Go ahead and do it. Okay, now make that purple elephant have green stripes. And then just for fun, put a lion on top, a lion's head on top, and a tiger's body, and we'll make a liger from that movie. Okay, good. Now open your eyes. Okay, that's it. Now, how many of you were able to successfully navigate your imagination? Perfect. Now take that skill and do the last thing I just asked you to do, and do it again. Now, close your eyes and imagine your timeline. Left to right, up to down, front to back, through you, around you, doesn't matter. Just imagine it. Good. Now, looking through your own eyes as if you were a character from a Marvel comic like Superman, Superwoman, whatever, I want you to float up above your timeline. So now put your timeline down on the ground and you imagine yourself floating above it. Perfect. Good. Now, for fun, just float out over the future. Just have a look at that exciting thing you're going to do next week. It's already kind of crystallized there in your timeline. Okay, turn around, face the past. Good. Float over the past. Good. Turn around above the now point. Float straight up like a helicopter. So it goes whoop and the perspective shrinks, and then float down a bit. Now the fancy one, I want you to float backwards, sort of bum first or feet first, into the past, but while you're facing the future. So you're sort of floating backwards in the past, and you're watching the future kind of from a perspective. Good. And then float forward back towards the now point, and then float back into the body that you're in right now. Come back into the room that you're in. How was that? Good. Everybody good? Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Everybody drives the timeline. Great. That's it. That's the extent of how hard this is going to be. Now comes the power. Okay. Now comes the power. So we talked about focusing on what you want. We talked about what negative emotions really signify, which is the focus on what you don't want. which is where choose positive emotions come from, not from a negate your emotions or ignore them or suppress them, but rather recognize that when you're in a negative emotional state, it means your focus got pulled away. And there is a lot pulling your focus right now. And I'm going to reiterate the words that Gandhi said, no one can take your power, but if you don't use your power, you kind of donate it to the collective, you donate it to the people who want it. And so if you just take it back, they can't have it. That's what we're doing here. We are going to now focus on what we want. The third thing in that performance triad was a physiology of power. Now, without getting into it, I'm going to tell you that your physiology, your body is a very powerful instrument. It's New Year's. So I want to teach you a quick way to put yourself into a very powerful state. It takes about 100 seconds and it's a breathing technique. Now, you probably all do some form of breathing. That's the type of people I tend to attract. You probably do yoga or meditation, right? And so you know that, as per your grandmother, back when you were a kid, stop and take a deep breath and count to 10 is generally a good general rule, all right? So about 6 breaths per minute is a really good rate to breathe, in for 5, out for 5. And then this graph you're looking at here is courtesy of my favorite institution, the Institute of Heart Math. And what their technique is you take that slower, deeper breathing and you layer in a feeling of emotional gratitude, not thinking gratitude, but emotional gratitude. And after 100 seconds of this practice, you will be in a state of coherence. What you're looking at here is a physiological shift from incoherence to coherence, and it takes about 100 seconds. So we're going to do this as a group, and then we're going to do all the techniques, and then you're going to get back on with your day and your week and your year, and you're going to maybe tell some people about this, and we're going to just keep this going. So everybody breathe out, just so we all start together. Then breathe in, 2. Breathe out. Now breathe in. Imagine breathing in through your heart. Just imagine breathing in through the area around your heart. And then breathe out. Good. And then breathe in through your heart. And as you do, think about something you're grateful for. Just think about it right now. And then breathe out. Good. Now, as you breathe in this time, think about something you're grateful for and activate that feeling of gratitude. Really sink into the feeling. That's right, Laura, you got your hand on your heart. That really helps. And then breathe out. Good. Now activate that feeling of appreciation or gratitude as you breathe in through your heart. Now try to send it to somebody in your house. Just try to send it to somebody in your house, like a little gratitude text message. Good. Now breathe in, activate that feeling of appreciation or gratitude for someone or something in your life. And as you breathe out, try to send it to somebody who's in this video call, just somebody who's struggling with getting there. Now, collectively, let's all breathe in, activate that feeling of appreciation or gratitude. And now let's send it out like a collective text message to the world. Send that gratitude, just send it around the planet. And one more time, breathe in through your heart. And then send that gratitude around to the planet. Just send it around. And give yourselves a hand. Now we're ready. Now, just FYI, I do a whole other program. We don't have time today, but I do a whole other program on the science of the technology that I just taught you. And in a nutshell, without getting into the science or the physics of it, because your heart is electric and your brain is electric, but specifically because your heart is electric and magnetic because of Faraday's law, every time your heart beats, you send out an electromagnetic pulse, and your emotions are what gets pulsed out into the planet. And this is not a metaphor. It's the same technology. It's called resonant physics. So when you do that practice, that alone changes the world around you. And notice it didn't require anybody else to change, just you. Okay, this starts with you and ends with you. Just change you, it'll change the world. So now let's talk about our timelines then. So I want to teach you how to do it for yourself, because then you can go and really set some goals for yourself for New Year's. And then we're going to do it collectively, and then we're out of here. Okay, so a couple of things about goal setting. Okay, 2-year-olds can set goals. So I'm going to just quickly talk about goal setting. Your goals should be SMART. You may or may not have heard about this, but in a nutshell, your goals should be specific, measurable, in the present. You should state it in the present. So for example, it is December 31st, 2022, and my business has done $3 million. It's stated in my present, my revenue is $3 million, whatever, it's stated in the present. Realistic. Now, realistic is not an example to cut yourself short. Realistic just means like, think about the context in which you're setting this goal. If you want to play piano at Carnegie Hall, you probably should know something about the piano. So you want it to be realistic. And then it needs a date. It must 100% have a date. So whatever goal you want to set for yourself, take 20 seconds and write down a goal that is SMART for you for 2022. Write down a goal that is SMART for you for 2022. So it is whatever date, July, August, February, November, whatever the date is, doesn't matter. Write down the date, write down the goal. It is blank, and I weigh blank, and I have blank dollars, and I have achieved blank. Blah, 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 doesn't matter. Okay, so everybody's done that before. So far, Gina, you haven't really taught me much here. Okay, you ready? Prepare to be blown away. So the next two things you probably have never done with respect to your goal. The first thing is to identify what is the very last step, the very last thing that has to happen, the very last thing that has to happen. So you 100% achieved the goal you just wrote down. So for example, let's say we had a collective goal, and our goal was, it's December 21st, 2022, and we are in Hawaii. Okay, so think about that. That's a goal. That's a SMART goal. But what has to happen so you are convinced you've achieved your goal? Just type it into the chat specifically. Don't be vague, be specific. So for me, I let go of that goal, and I celebrate my achievement of that goal when my body is in my hotel room, and I've gone through every single thing in my hotel room, and I know all the perks of my hotel room. I've opened all the drawers. I've gone through all the room service. I know what my hotel has to offer me, and I know I'm going to take advantage of it. Then I'm done. My goal is check. So type into the chat what has to happen to you for this goal of going to Hawaii, stepping off the plane. That's right, Tracy, you just get off the plane, boom, done. What has to happen to you so you know you got that goal? Okay, come on, type some things into the chat. Only one person's coming to Hawaii with me? What has to happen specifically? I'm on the beach and can feel my feet in the warm sand, lovely. Feel the warm sun, feet in the sand, ticket in my inbox. Oh, I like that one. Done, ticket in my inbox, done. Hopefully it doesn't go to spam, right? Plane lands. I'm at Arnold's Beach Bar, very specific. Good. I check my bank account. These are all great. And notice how if everybody on this call, we have pretty much a different last step for everyone. This is absolutely critical. Your nervous system drives to your last step. And if you don't direct it, it's a question mark. So now what I want you to do is write down the very last thing that has to happen before you're convinced you achieved the goal you wrote down for 2022. What has to happen? So if it's money, do you have to log into your bank on your computer or your phone? If it's weight loss, are you on a digital scale, an analog scale? Is it a measurement? If it's a relationship, are you holding hands with that person? So what specifically has to happen so you know you got the goal? Okay, now I want to teach you the technique. So you're going to need your timeline. Here, let me walk you through it. So let me walk you through it first, and then we're going to do it. Then I'll lead you through the technique. But this is a visual representation of what's going to happen. You're going to state your goal, and then you're going to get the last step. Once you get the last step, you're going to jump inside like a video of it almost. You're going to jump inside that it's happening, and you're going to make it feel super real. You're going to color it and put sounds in it and feelings and smells, and you're going to make it as real as you can. And then you're going to lock it in, and you're going to step out, and you're going to kind of hold it like like a phone, like a picture or a Polaroid or something like that. And then you're going to take that internal representation, that energized picture, and you're going to imagine your timeline, and you're going to float up above your timeline. And we're going to energize it with 4 deep breaths. And then we're going to float out the future part of your timeline, and you're going to drop it into whatever date you picked for your goal. And you're going to drop it in there, and you can throw it, fling it, you can go gadget arms it. It doesn't matter to me. You just have to fling it into your timeline, plop it in there, lock it in. You're going to notice your timeline is going to change because you've done it now. And then you're going to float above your timeline, and you're going to come all the way back to the now point. Okay, everybody ready? Okay, so read your goal out loud. Read your goal out loud so that it becomes real in sound. Good. Now, identify the last step. What is the last thing that needs to happen so you know you got your goal? Now, step inside a picture of that moment. Step inside a picture of the moment of the last step and turn it up and make it real, make it real, make it real, make it real. Turn the colors up, turn the sounds up, turn the kinesthetic up, if there's a cinnamon bun baking in the background, even better. Just make it real till it's so real you couldn't want it anymore, and freeze it and jump out of the picture and now see yourself in the picture. See yourself in the picture, put the picture in your hand. Imagine your timeline and float up above your timeline. Just float up above your timeline with the picture in your hand. Okay, now let's give it 4 deep breaths like the ones we were just doing. Ready? Breathe in and then make a ha sound and breathe into the picture. This brings energy to the picture. Second breath in. Third breath. Really breathe like you're starting, a fire. You're starting to start the embers. Fourth breath, really give it all the desire from now. And then float above that timeline to the date, whatever date you picked. Just hover above that date. And when you get to that date, drop the picture into your timeline. Just fling it down into your timeline and see it get set into the timeline. Turn your body. Notice your timeline changes in some way, colors, shapes, lights, whatever, and then float above your timeline, come back into the room that you're sitting in right now. Good. Good. Now, I promised you my most powerful technique, which is how to use the timeline to manage anxiety. Anxiety and worry is simply one thing. You are focused on what you do not want, period. Raise your hand if you're a bona fide psychic, like that's how you earn your living. Okay, so no one. Cool. And if you did, I would want the lottery numbers. But anyway, so that's just a side conversation. So no one here can predict the future. So your anxiety comes from predicting the future going badly. That seems like a bad design. Okay, so you are in charge of your anxiety. It comes from focusing on the future turning out badly. Well, hello, you get 126 bits a second. It's like a budget. I'm going to teach you how to focus on it turning out correctly. And then that's going to halt your anxiety. And when we use the mechanism of the timeline, we actually halt the anxiety response in the body. Okay, so pick something you're generally worried about. Don't pick this major thing. Pick something minor, like whether you're going to be on time next week, or you're going to be able to catch the train on time, or whatever. Just pick something minor that you like fret about in your future. Okay, now only do this if you actually want to be free of your anxiety. If you want to keep your anxiety, go ahead. I'm not the anxiety police. I don't think there's anything wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with it. Emotions are just communication. If you want to keep it, go ahead. But if you want to be free of it, do exactly what I say. Who wants to be free of it? Raise your virtual hands, or your real hands. Perfect. Do exactly what I say. Float up above your timeline. Okay, so close your eyes, float up above your timeline. Now, float out into the future to 15 minutes beyond the successful completion of this event you think you're worried about. So float out into the future, go 15 minutes past the successful completion of the event you think you're worried about, turn your body 180 degrees and look towards now. Notice the anxiety disappears. If it hasn't disappeared, raise your hand. Wow. I want all of you in my next classroom. You're float over the timeline, come back to now, come back into the room and give yourselves a hand, an actual hand, not an actual hand, or I'm going to give you a reactions hand. Anxiety is a decision to focus on what you don't want, which means you can decide to focus on what you do want, and that will eradicate your anxiety. It works every time. Now, it's not a one and done. I have private clients, they have to do that 1,000 times a day. No joke. Okay. Eventually it will become cumbersome to do the technique and you'll just stop focusing on what you don't want. But in the interim, you just have to do that every single time you feel anxiety. Snap out of it, snap out of it, snap out of it, snap out of it, snap out of it. Okay. Now, here's what we're here for. All right. Here is what we're here for. We're here to put a collective goal in the timeline of humanity. Now, a word about goals. So you just put that goal in your own timeline. You're going to hit some obstacles along the way. Okay. I want you to think of it like a flight path. So when you're on a plane, remember flying on planes? So when you're on a plane, you're not on the flight path 93% of the time. 93% of the time you're off the flight path. But what doesn't happen is the pilot doesn't come on and go, oh shit, we're going to be 15 minutes late. Oh no, wait, actually we caught a wind. We're going to be an hour and a half early. Nope, actually 2 hours late. There's another airplane and oh no, hold on, 3 minutes early. Oh no, we're on the flight path. We're damn on. Oh no, 4 minutes late. No, 2 hours. That doesn't happen. Okay. No pilot on earth commentates the flight path, and nor should you. Your goal is in the timeline. Trust that it's in the timeline. Your goal is to course correct yourself. When you fall off, put yourself back on. When you feel anxiety, manage it. When you are inspired to take action, take action. When you're in a negative emotional state, stop. Notice, alter, proceed. That's it. Just keep yourself course correct, course correct, course correct. So now let's do humanity. So in an effort to save time, I printed all of your responses to my questions. Thank you for doing that. Now that you've had a chance to be trained in it, what I'd like you to do is type one word. Everybody type one word into the chat. And here's what I want you to type into it. Thinking along the lines of what has to have occurred? What is the last thing that has to occur? So we know we've taken humanity into a place of healing, into a place of unity instead of divisiveness, into a place of gratitude instead of fear, into a place of love instead of hate. If that were the reality, and you all wrote, I want to just read you about a few things that were part of the vision, right? The concept that the differences we have make us special, and that makes us unified, not divided. Aligned, recalibration of our relationships, an intrinsic connection, a mindset shift, love, compassion, kindness, love, compassion, kindness, peace, love, compassion, kindness, love, compassion, kindness. Are you hearing love, compassion, kindness, unity? These were all part of your visions. So what is the word that represents the last step for you that we need to put into our reality? What needs to be there? Not there. What needs to be there? How will you know you have changed? How will you know things have changed? Type into the chat your last step, your vision, your convincer for humanity, that we've turned the corner, that we are not talking about the current paradigm, we are in a new paradigm. What has this awakened in you? A need for what to occur, right? Community, peace, understanding, collective purpose. I'm gonna actually write these on my flip chart, and then we're gonna put that into our humanity goal. So unity, peace, love, connectedness, calm. I'm going to put gratitude. Okay. Bringing my flip chart back here, shutting off that light so you can see it. And if you can't see it, that's what it says. Okay, so now we're going to do the group goal. It's very, very similar. What I want you to do individually is I want you to make a picture of the last step. What needs to occur in your world? What do you need to see, hear, feel in your world so that you know we've made a difference here today, so that you know we've created a united humanity. We've created a loving humanity focused on what's right. We've remembered who we are. We're in touch with our power. What needs to happen for you? Go ahead and step into that reality. Step into that reality and then make it real. Create visuals, sounds, feelings, smells, tastes, so that you know we are there. Good. Now really turn it up so that this is a reality you are willing to do whatever it takes to bring into reality, including breaking some of your bad habits, showing up differently, forgiving others, doing things in a different way this year than you've always done them, not resorting to the old neurological habits, but instead creating new ones. Okay, make it real, make it full of desire, make it full of anticipation, and then freeze it. Step out, hold the picture in your hand, float up above your timeline for now, float up above your timeline for now. Good. Now notice while you're up above your timeline that there are other timelines connected to your timeline. And in fact, your timeline is part of a bigger timeline. Just notice that all the timelines of the world are sort of like the wires in a giant cable of one collective timeline, and float up above that collective timeline, the one we all share. That includes the earth, that includes the animals, that includes the people. Float up above that timeline. And then all of us together, okay, 4 deep breaths into the collective goal for humanity on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Breathe in. Breathe in. Breathe in. And now float with me above the collective timeline of humanity to 1 year from today, January 2nd, 2023. Float out to 1 year from today, all the way out to 1 year from today. And as you all hover above 1 year from today, drop those collective goals into the collective timeline for humanity. Just go ahead and drop it down, have it lock in, and then everybody turn 180 degrees and notice how the timeline of humanity changes. You may notice that it lights up. You may notice that it snakes. You may notice that things stream in and out of it. You may notice that it gets colorful. You may notice that it gets wider or thinner. Just notice there may be sounds. There may be feelings. Just notice the collective timeline of humanity changes. Stay above it, flow all the way above the collective timeline of humanity. Come all the way back to now and come back into the room. And give yourselves a hand. Give yourselves a collective hand. And I thank you on behalf of humanity. And I alluded to this in the middle of the call, and I'm about to wrap it up here. There is only you. Carl Jung said perception is projection, right? So you project reality and then you reinforce it. So if we want to change reality, we have to project something different. And notice how when you were managing anxiety, or notice how when you were doing your goal setting, or notice how when you were thinking about your focus, it had nothing to do with the people around you. It had nothing to do with the events around you. It had everything to do with you. And so just notice that if you change you, the rest of it will take care of itself. That's just physics, okay? It can't show up any other way because it comes from you. And I want to leave you with this. And I'm going to replay this call. I'm probably going to post it and replay it. So feel free to share it with people. I want to leave you with this. This is one of the most powerful quotes that I I live by and what inspired this entire call to begin with, which is what Margaret Mead always said, which is never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. We need to stop waiting for them to change it for us and realize we're the ones who change. Then reality changes. The hardest part is seeing through the illusion of false evidence appearing real. If you can get through that, then you can decide proactively what you want your future to look for, and then the future shows up differently. So thank you for spending your time with me here today, for serving humanity. Honestly, thank you. I'm going to replay this. I'm going to post it. You can watch it a million times.